Right then, you horrible lot. This week on Burntwolf Airsoft, I'm going to be giving you a few tips to start you out filming and editing your own airsoft footage. Filming airsoft footage is a great way to improve your gameplay, and it's always nice to go back and look at the good old times. First things first, you're going to need some cameras. I'd recommend getting an action cam to start with. GoPros are good, and so are a number of GoPro copies. Try and get something capable of recording in HD if you can. Now, along with this, you're going to need to get an SD card. Try to get something bigger than the runtime of your camera. I've got 32 gig cards in both of my cameras, and I've never filled up an entire one yet. For the really posh, you might want to think about getting a couple of cameras to cover a few more angles. Camcorders make great scope cams, but they're fragile compared to action cams, and I found them quite fiddly to mount on top of an airsoft gun. There's also a lot of new scope cams coming out on the market too, and I've heard a lot of good things about them, but I haven't used one myself. But they might be worth having a look into. As with anything, check a few reviews online to make sure you're not buying a potato. But to start with, just get the one camera until you've gotten to grips with your editing software. I'm certainly in no rush to see your ugly mug just yet. Also, it pays to make sure this is something you're going to enjoy doing before you start throwing money at it. Next up, filming a game. Now, before you film a game, you should do some dry runs with your camera to make sure they're all pointing in the right angle. There's nothing worse than getting back from a day and finding out that you've been filming the floor. Now, down to the actual filming. Go out there and have fun. Remember to press the record button, obviously, and to turn it off in between games to save battery life. Speaking of battery life, you can get these portable USB chargers. They're great for topping up a battery throughout the day, as not all sites have electricity. Now to the editing. This is where the real work starts, I can tell you. Chuck everything onto the PC and have a watch through. Pays to know what you've got to work with. Try to decide what kind of video you're to make, whether it will be educational or entertainment, or somewhere in between. Remember to cut the crap. Pays to be very critical of your work if it's going into the public domain. A few things I've found helpful is to edit action shots alongside music. This really helps to keep the pace going. With educational videos, however, I find it easier to edit around the voiceover and use the music just for the background. Whilst on the subject of voiceovers, I found that writing scripts really helps speeds the whole process along. And if you write and record things in single sentences, it's much easier to edit out the times you mess up rather than picking out single words. Otherwise, you'll end up sounding robotic. A few more tips when it comes to editing is remember, like anything, it takes time to learn to make better videos and use all the features of your editing software. Speaking of editing software, this stuff really eats up PC power, so make sure the software you intend to use will run on your PC. I'd recommend simple editing softwares for those starting out, like Windows Movie Maker, rather than spending loads of money on the big boy stuff. I'm currently in the process of switching over to more advanced editing suites, and I can tell you, for an old technophobe like myself, the features are bloody mind-boggling. For those wishing to add music to their videos, there are a variety of royalty-free music sites out there to use, but please check the usage policy. Most sites will at least want you to credit their work, which I think is a fair trade for providing it for free. There's a link to a few sites I've used in the past for royalty-free music for you in the description, as well as a hit marker that's served me well for a rather long time now. Should be something to help you get started off. Oh, and one last thing, I found that you'll spend hours making a video and kind of lose track of how it looks or sounds, so it pays to leave anything you think is finished overnight and have a look at it later on with fresh eyes and ears. You'll be shocked at how much you will have dropped the bat sometimes. And that's a few tips to start you out filming your own airsoft games. Remember to try and mix things up a little bit and add your own style. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more airsoft content. Anyway, back to what you were doing. At ease.